I am Louise Noel-Ambrose, the newly elected president of the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton. We thank you for joining us this evening. We hope everyone remains well and safe during this pandemic. It was a beautiful summer, not counting what's happening today, but that's okay, we appreciate that. We are gathered this evening to offer and learn more about the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton, formed May 3rd, 1912. At this time in the program, we recognize and acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Agreement. Might we not only learn about the Indigenous people of Canada, but from them. The Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton is striving to continue to be a group of people concerned about issues that affect women, educating and advocating for those issues in our community. The purpose of the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton is to foster throughout the Greater Hamilton area an interest in all matters of public concern to strengthen the Canadian unity and identity, encourage the education and promotion of Canadian history and heritage, foster an appreciation of Canadian culture and traditions to new Canadians. Our monthly meetings, which are now virtual, take place via Zoom on the third Wednesdays of the month with featured guest speakers on a variety of social issues. Our fall newsletter has full details, which I will share with you at the end of this session. We presently, the board, the members that we have here with us today, we have our past president, Susan Ricketts. Hello. We have Pat Saunders, a former past president as well, Lee, a former past president, and Ruth, our current secretary of the organization. I welcome you, Jay, Wilhelmina, Sean, and who, there is no one else waiting to come in at this time. So at this time, I ask our past president, Pat Saunders, to give us a further introduction of the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton.
Well, I have to admit, I'm not sure what that means.
Well, when it began and then how it has survived, I would think.
Yes. So okay. What is the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton?
Well, what I'm hoping I was going to be able to do is to share my own history in terms of why I got involved to begin with. And
that is fine.
That was because I am the child of immigrants. I grew up listening to my mother say, "I am Canadian." And I knew, because she was my mother, that she had no idea what that meant. What does it mean to be Canadian? But whatever, she was a Canadian. And what I learned later is that when my parents came, women were, the term was called naturalized. They became Canadian citizens under their husbands. And so that was the status that my mother had, but it wasn't good enough for her. When she reached her 65th birthday, she said, "I am Canadian and I'm going to be a Canadian." So she studied to become a Canadian citizen, and of course passed the test and finished her life as a Canadian citizen. So that's the history that I grew up with. And so it made me determined that I was going to be part of a group that knew what it meant to be Canadian. And I'm not sure that I've always done that, but I'd like to think I be recognized for having made the effort. And I'm hoping that maybe with some young people that I see here tonight, it will become even more important that we identify what it means to be Canadian. Is
So
that
Pat,
enough?
yes, so Pat, we can confer that the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton, our mandate is education and providing education.
Yes.
Wonderful. At this time, I call on Ruth, our coordinator, Encounters with Canada. That's one of our programs that the club had sponsored for several years.
I apologize for being green on the screen. I tried to update my Zoom on my laptop and it didn't work. So I'm going to have to look into that more. Our club for many years supported local students, 2 or 3 each year from schools in the Hamilton area, and the last number of years from Sir John A. Macdonald's school, to send them for a week in Ottawa to a program called Encounters with Canada. It was first established in 1982, but I'm not sure when our club actually started to send students. It was Canada's largest forum for youth between ages 14 and 17. And since then, over 113,000 Canadian students from all across the country and the territories would attend for a week of activities. They would tour Ottawa. They would go on a week when a theme that they were very interested in was being presented. It could be health and medicine, it could be sport and fitness, it could be law and security. And sometimes that leads to career paths. But unfortunately, I just found out that because of COVID and the program not being able to run last year, nor again this year, Historica Canada has decided to suspend the program, close it down, and sell its assets. So this is so disappointing because it's been so beneficial for the students. And when they would come back from their week in Ottawa, we would have them come to our May luncheon and make a brief presentation about their week. And the one common theme every single year from the students was how much they enjoyed meeting students from all across the country, and were keeping in touch with them, especially in these latter years when there's all the social media and they can easily keep in touch. So it's very disappointing that this program has stopped. So I said to Louise and a couple of others on the board today in an email that hopefully we can find some other program supporting students to support them financially. So that's to be determined.
Thank you so much. It's appreciated.
Do we have to accept that the program has been discontinued?
It's totally stopped as of January.
But who made that decision?
Historica Canada.
So who are they accountable to?
Well, the government, I guess.
Well, maybe we should look into what we might be able to do to resurrect it.
That
Well,
we can.
I mean, you don't drop something because you decide that you don't want it anymore.
No, it wasn't that they don't want it,
Because of
but it
COVID.
wasn't a viable program for the last 2 years during COVID, and financially they probably just could not carry on.
But what do they have to carry on with? Just wait until the pandemic is finished. It's going to end.
I can do some more research to find out. But the program does not exist anymore.
No, well, we have access to a new member of parliament.
That's true.
Let's see how much they will do what they said they would do in order to get elected.
We can
Okay,
do that, Pat. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much. Lee, can you take a look to see if anyone is waiting, please?
I'm having trouble. Yeah, I just took a look, Louise, and I don't see anybody there.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize that that was me doing that.
No, because you have,
Okay.
yes.
Um,
At this time, if there are any questions, please, I open the floor and I will start with Jay to ask your questions.
I don't have any at this time.
Okay. Wilhelmina, any questions?
she's muted, Louise.
Sean, if you're there, can you, any questions?
Am I muted now?
Oh, you're okay now. We can hear you
Oh.
now.
Okay. I was wondering, like, with the schools or the children that we help, do we help them here in the city of Hamilton?
That's
Yeah.
possible.
Yes.
We're going to look into it.
Mm-hmm. Because it should come from our community, shouldn't it?
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
Yes, the students that we've sent have all been from the Hamilton area, from both school boards, I believe, at one time. In the past few years, it was more difficult getting the schools to cooperate and getting the information to them. And so we focused on the students at Sir John A. Macdonald. So they were Hamilton students who were going to the program.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Louise,
And-
I could just mention that another project that we've been involved with, and unfortunately haven't been for the past 18 months, again, because of the restrictions imposed by COVID, is hosting receptions at the Canadian Citizenship Court at the federal building. So we would go once a month and witness the swearing in of our newest Canadian citizens, and afterwards treat them to some tea and coffee and goodies, and get to chat with them and welcome them as our newest members of the Canadian family. Now, we are ready to go back and do that, but because of these restrictions and social distancing and the number, that you can have in a place, there have not been any in-person citizenship ceremonies since the pandemic began. So we're just waiting to see if things clear up and we can go back to doing that. That's a lovely thing that we do, and it's really a heartwarming experience.
Mhm.
At this time, I call on Susan Ricketts, our past president, to speak about our signature event, Women of Spirit Awards, in celebration of Women's History Month.
So we have had thank you. We have had over the years luncheon meetings and speakers and so on. But in 2018, just the year before everything sort of shut down, the city of Hamilton asked us to vote for the honoree to be honored on August the 1st, which is George Hamilton Day. And I believe 7 prominent women from Hamilton area we were voted on them, and the winner of this was Dr. Bagshaw, Elizabeth Bagshaw. Nothing happened on the August 1st weekend at all. And so fall came, and we heard from the city that there would be an exhibition, including all 7 of the women. Nothing happened. So we started to talk about this, and we decided that this couldn't, we really had to do something about this. So what we did, I should say, was to create an award, the Women of Spirit Award, and it was to honor a woman from the greater Hamilton area who has made a significant contribution to our community as a humanitarian, trailblazer, and role model in the spirit of Dr. Bagshaw. Now that meant that, and that happened in 2019 in October. This award would change. In other words, another woman from Hamilton another year would be our honoree, and then we had five women that were selected for this award. It was really a wonderful day, luncheon, and so on. The prize was $500 with help from the bank, from the Scotia Bank, and a beautiful handmade bear, a Canadian bear by Barbara Soch, who is a prize-winning a potter from Hamilton. So that was what happened in 2019, and then of course nothing has happened since then. So we plan to go ahead with the second award sometime next year. The board hasn't decided on a date yet, but we will be. And we found that this was one way of drawing many different people together and highlighting some of the women that are today making a significant contribution to Hamilton. So that is in the works, or will be in the works probably from the 1st of next year, and when we've decided on a date. And of course, that all depends on how COVID does with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Open up the floor for questions. I will pose the question. How would you describe the culture, the people, the women that are involved at the Women's Canadian Club of Hamilton? And that question can be answered by any or all of the three past presidents.
Well, for me, it's to promote Canadian culture, Canadian women, particularly from this area, and that's one part of it. And the other part of it is a social part too, in that you get to meet other, wonderful people from the city that you wouldn't normally meet, and to do things that are beneficial in our area. That from speaking about our country and our culture.
Lee?
Sorry. Well, like most of the people here, it was Pat who brought me into the Women's Canadian Club, and she enticed me with a couple of the wonderful speakers that they were going to have. And well, I knew Pat from other contexts and groups that we belong to, so she had an idea of what would interest me, and that's how she got me hook, line, and sinker. But I was always interested in the quality of speakers and the great variety of speakers that they had. I remember the first one I went to, well, the first one I was supposed to go to was canceled. So the first one I actually got to was a fellow, I think from the London area, talking about life and death and setting things to music. And it seemed very bizarre at the time, but it was a really wonderful and interesting talk. And since then, we've had speakers on a lot of different topics, which is good. We've had authors come in. We've had some entertainment. This past year, we've really focused on some social issues, homelessness and human trafficking and the environment and things like that. And that, I think, is what I like about the Women's Canadian Club, is that you can get introduced to a lot of topics. You can maybe find something that's of particular interest to you, but you're always learning something, no matter what they're talking about. I find every time I come to a meeting, I'm learning something and finding something interesting. So, and of course, getting to meet the people there, when we're not doing things on Zoom, but actually getting to sit and chat with people, and people from different parts of the city, different backgrounds, different age groups, because we do tend to go from not quite so young, but Louise, to maybe people who were young quite a long time ago. So
No names mentioned.
And it's nice to think that you can be, have an intelligent conversation and get along and become good friends with people from all these different backgrounds and age groups. And I think that's just wonderful.
Well said.
Well said, Pat.
I'm sorry, what?
Pat, how long have you been with the organization?
Well, I should have known that would be a question you'd ask me. It seems like forever.
And can you tell us why the group was formed and why there was two?
Why there were two?
Yes.
There were two groups?
Well, the Canadian Club and then the
Oh,
Women's
the
Club.
men.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, at first, the women weren't allowed to become members of the Canadian Club, which was an all-male club. But over the years, of course, that has changed. And there's good reason now why they should be one group.
What year did the Women's Canadian Club start? I thought it was 1912.
Yes, it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know when the men's group started, but it had to be before that. But I don't know how much before that.
I think it was in the late 1800s, 1899, somehow or other
Yeah.
rings a bell.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It was several years.
So
Are
it's
you
been a-
able to hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear
Yes,
you, Ruth.
it was formed in 1912. And then in 2012, we had our 100-year anniversary celebrations, and it all culminated in a gala banquet at the Scottish Rite, and we had entertainment, and some artifacts were brought by the curators at Dundurn Castle, and so that we're coming up next year to our 110th year.
We'll have to celebrate.
Yes.
Really, 110.
110, yeah.
Yeah.
Time.
I used to tell people at Citizenship Court that when I explained about the club that it was started in 1912, that was the same year that the Titanic hit the iceberg and sunk. And the first thing that the Women's Canadian Club did was hold a fundraiser to help the people from the Titanic, and they raised something like $54, which always gets a chuckle, but you have to remember at that time it only cost a penny to send a piece of mail across the country. And I'll say, so the Titanic went down in 1912, but we're still here.
Yeah.
I have another question. What are the opportunities for members? So we have potential few members here with us in this session and those to come. What are the opportunities for these members within the club? Lee?
Well, aside from, just the opportunity to meet other people and hear the speakers, there's an opportunity to get involved, at the board level or with some of the activities that we do, such as at Citizenship Court, and to bring their perspective into the group and maybe to introduce the group to other groups that they're involved with and vice versa. So there's always a networking, whether it's between individuals or between groups, that should be a great opportunity for us too.
I do take this time to indicate that our membership fee for this year is only $25. Normally it's $50, but given the circumstances that we're in, it was agreed that it will be $25. And we also going to be looking at promoting women in business in the Hamilton area via our social media platforms. Okay, next question that I have, what services membership fees go to?
Well, we pay our speakers every month, which is a huge thing, I mean, that's a major thing. We have a web and we pay for that, and insurance, and at our dinners. They're often subsidized by the club. So it really does. We do spread it very, very much over many things.
Indeed, yes. And one more question I have at this time before opening it up again. Can non-members view our annual financial report?
Yeah, the annual financial report is printed in the fall newsletter
Yes,
normally,
yeah.
which should be posted online in good circumstances. This year it's not, but but it will be there eventually. So yes, we're open to everybody.
Yes, we are very transparent. Can individuals donate financially to the organization?
Well, yes, they can donate, but we are not a registered charity under the Canada Revenue Agency, so we're unable to issue official receipts for income tax purposes.
Okay. I have one last question that I will ask. What sets us apart from other organizations in Hamilton? And
for me, for one thing, for me is the variety of our of whom we have to come to speak and so on. I love the question and answer period at the end of each meeting where we can we have a period of time where we can voice what we think about certain things. We've had some wonderful discussions at that level. And also when we have our luncheons, they really are all very, very delicious. So that's another thing. Anyway, there's a couple of things. Ruth, what do you think?
Well, its thought just came to my mind to point out, although we're the Women's Canadian Club, and the original Canadian Club was men only and women weren't allowed to join, we welcome men. And we have had some gentlemen, Fred Roberts is an example, who have come to our meetings. And so we're not just exclusively women.
No,
no, we're not.
We're far more forward thinking than the men, aren't we?
Yes.
All right. Keeping this session short and sweet, I just would like to inform our fall schedule for the club and for invitation to the Hamilton community on October 20th at 1 p.m. We have Meaningful Citizenship with Esther Bruns. She will be our guest speaker. On November the 17th at 1 p.m., we have Estate Planning, Administration, and Litigation with Ms. Shana Bixma, my apologies. And December 15th is our annual holiday social gone virtual again. We all chuckle because we were there and we look forward to 2021 celebration. Wilhelmina, any questions at this time?
Yeah, you mentioned something else in between October 20th and the 15th. What was that one?
November?
Yeah.
Was that in November? I was referring.
Is it the estate planning?
Yes. Yeah. Estate Planning, Administration, and Litigation with Shana Bixma. I will forward you the link to our fall newsletter. Feel free to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Any other questions, Sean? Are you able to pose a question at this time?
No? Hi, yeah, no questions for me. Thank you so much. I've just been listening in, and yes, I don't have any questions at this point.
Thank you so much. At this time, I thank you all for joining us. I do appreciate your time. We look forward to welcoming you all at our upcoming events at the Women Canadian Club of Hamilton. Pat Saunders, Susan Ricketts, Lee Girls, Wilhelmina, Sean, Ruth, thank you. Louise Noel-Ambrose, looking
Thank
forward.
you, Louise.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Louise.
Thank you to
Thank you
Louise.
for inviting
Bye
me,
for the
Louise.
invite. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Best regards to all.
Okay, thank you.